Hello everyone, and welcome to Hyperanalyzing LCS, the series where I discuss the biggest moments from the LCS and give attention to the tiniest details that can decide the outcome of a game. This week I will look at some plays from the third week of the 2022 LCS Summer Split Playoffs. Inspired carried this game-winning teamfight in Game 2 between EG and TSM.
They gotta stop TSM. Inspired will lead the way. Clearing out some control wards here.
They need vision.
All right, turning. Solo's ready to go in. You don't need a ward when you got a Scion. Speaking gonna lose half HP. TSM backing up a little bit as EG piled forward. Maple's doing a great job zoning everybody away, but the pressure is there. Inspired is there. Tactical is gone. Maple is gone. Big Eye is gone. TSM is gone.
Inspired takes over the fight.
TSM starts the Baron, which EG has to approach without vision. TSM turns for the fight with Solo popping Unstoppable Onslaught, but Vulcan steps forward to stop Solo from reaching Danny, who is able to line up the Seraphine ult to charm 2 and consume Tactical Spell Shield. Inspired steps forward to land both parts of Winter's Wrath on Tactical, and Jojopyun flashes in to stun Tactical with Ruthless Predator. Tactical instantly cleanses this stun, but Jojopyun's attacks bring Tactical to maximum stacks of Sejuani's Frost. Inspired sees this and dives in, flashing past both Maple and Spica to land Arctic Assault onto Tactical. Cyclone and Final Chapter briefly stop Inspired from chasing further, but he is still within range to stun Tactical with Permafrost. Inspired procs the bonus damage from stunning Tactical with another cast of Winter's Wrath before stunning Tactical again with Glacial Prison and finishing him off with an auto attack. As he is chasing down Tactical, Inspired stays alive thanks to his Anathema's Chains, which not only reduces the damage he takes from Tactical but also increases the duration of Inspired's stuns, further preventing Tactical from damaging him. Spica then jumps onto Inspired, trying to trade a kill back, but Spica is low on health and already has 2 stacks of Frost. Inspired knocks Spica back with Arctic Assault, making it easy for Inspired to apply the final 2 stacks of Frost and stun Spica just as Spica attempts to sneak away with his clone. This allows Inspired to take him down with Winter's Wrath despite the real Spica being invisible, and from here Chime's Yuumi doesn't stand a chance and Inspired takes him down for the triple kill. Meanwhile, on the other side of the fight, Spica is unable to dive into the EG team as he gets slowed due to EG's Hextech Soul, and Impact's damage quickly forces Spica to ult and back away. Maple is able to tank up a lot of damage by popping the Swain ult just before getting charmed by Danny, and Tactical gets a lot of damage into Jojopyun, forcing Jojo to use Stopwatch with a sliver of health left. However, Jojopyun is able to survive as Vulcan casts Locket of the Iron Solari, and Danny adds more heals with a double cast of the Seraphine W, which also gives the entire EG team a massive double heal. With that heal, EG has no problem winning in a 4v2, while Inspired is also winning on the other side of this fight practically 1v3, giving EG the clean ace and the win in this game. Cloud9 turned around and engaged from 100 Thieves to win big in this teamfight.
100 Thieves in a very powerful position here. Look for them to almost just retaliate to Cloud9 when they try and engage, because they have
trying.
first.
Civility is on, so there goes Shrillius from Sven. Can they catch the rest of it? Needs to be in range, can't root him. Sven flashes away from Yuumi, but a flash tackle into the ulti. A stopwatch buys 2.5, but is there a kill? No, Blabber's going to live. An important stopwatch then. The knocker comes through, kill follows. Sivir is down, and Closer's gonna fall with them. What a great turn by Cloud9. Onaga just slinks away, but a flash follow for Berserker. It's gonna be 4 for nothing.
This play starts with 100 Thieves attempting to pick off Blabber and Sven in a 4v2. FBI pops on the hunt to speed up his team, and Sven responds with Shirelia's battle song. The Cloud9 duo are barely able to get away from Huhi's Final Chapter, with Sven flashing away and Blabber using Nimbus Strike to a minion. As Blabber tries to stay away from the Yuumi ult, he ends up against the bot lane wall, allowing Closer to stun him with Heroic Charge. Blabber falls below 300 HP before he gets the chance to use Stopwatch, buying time for the rest of C9 to arrive. He still seems to be in a bad spot, but 100 Thieves is forced away due to a well-placed hostile takeover from Sven and the threat of Fudge teleporting in with Slicing Maelstrom available. This allows Blabber to back out safely, although Sunday is in a good position to flank C9 and continue the chase. Then, despite having very little health left, Blabber makes the call to re-engage, going invisible and flashing into FBI and Closer, knocking them up with Cyclone. Fudge follows up with his own flash into Slicing Maelstrom. With this engage, Cloud9 quickly kill both FBI and Closer as well as the attached Yuumi. It is worth noting that Blabber does have the bailout from Sven, so even if he were to die, he would likely be revived, especially with Fudge hitting a big Slicing Maelstrom. Abidaga is almost able to escape with a good Emperor's Divide into a dash over the wall, but Berserker flashes after him and picks up the 4th kill in this huge fight for Cloud9. Impact picked up a Pentakill on Gangplank to close out Game 4 against Team Liquid.
It would be a clone over the wall, and that's about all you get. Super Mega Death Rocket's not going to do a whole lot. It looks like they're just ready to turn around and try to stand and fight. Jojo here in the stasis. Flame Choppers are going to arm and immediately be ready to kill him. Shut down over to Hans Sama, but now they're in trouble. Santorin's gone. Hans is gone. Whitmo and Bjergsen trying to get away. Vulcan's got the slows. He's got the feet. Over the wall, Farming like creeps. Triple kill for Impact. Core JJ, he'll make it a quadra, and EG just mocked them up.
Impact is collecting more than heads this game. Let's see if they can finish it on this push.
Evil geniuses, I don't think it's an if, it's a matter of yes, sir. Going straight for the Nexus turret.
Dangle.
There it is. There it is, Kobe. There's the Pentakill for Impact.
EG start the Baron, but the whole team pulls away when TL approach, and fights start in two different places. First, Vulcan uses Magical Journey to cut off Bwipo as Danny follows. Vulcan then turns toward a fight starting behind the Baron pit, and once Bwipo uses Stopwatch, Danny decides not to wait it out and instead join the second fight as well, a decision that would allow Impact to pick up the Pentakill later. Meanwhile, when Vulcan starts that fight, Santorin fakes as if he is going to help Bwipo, but instead uses his clone and invisibility to make a surprise engage onto Jojo Pyun with Hansama there to follow up. Jojo Pyun instantly pops Zhonya's Hourglass and exits stasis into the second charge of Santorin's Cyclone, but he is able to cast Chaos Storm just before he dies, forcing Santorin to use Stopwatch. A pillar from Inspired hinders Hansama's movements, and Vulcan throws Tempered Fate toward Hansama as well. Hansama has some split-second indecisiveness as he first tries to run out of the Bard ult, but then realizes that he won't be able to and ends up flashing from one end of the Bard ult to the other, getting hit anyway. As all this happens, Impact is the last member of EG to leave the Baron pit, but he immediately turns back into the pit when Santorin engages onto Jojo Pyun. Impact flashes over the wall as he executes a very nice barrel chain that unfortunately hits no one since all nearby enemies are in stasis. Impact then places another powder keg next to Hansama. Santorin is the first to exit stasis, and Impact hits him with a big Trial by Fire auto attack. Inspired then hits Santorin with a chomp, bringing him below 5% health, causing the Collector from Impact to execute Santorin on the next tick of Trial by Fire. When Hansama's Tempered Fate-induced stasis ends, Vulcan stuns him with Cosmic Binding, and Impact shoots the powder keg to blow up Hansama for the second kill. Bjergsen hits Impact with Seismic Shove, but doesn't get the stun with Unraveled Earth coming in too late. Vulcan flashes after Bjergsen, tagging him with Cosmic Binding just before Bjergsen flashes away, so Bjergsen still gets stunned against the wall. A pillar from Inspired traps Bjergsen, and Vulcan uses Magical Journey to get EG through the wall. Impact is also able to place a powder keg at maximum range over the wall next to Bjergsen. Vulcan is the first to go through the portal and gets hooked by Core JJ on the other side, but this frees up Impact to hit that powder keg, which crits for over 1300 damage, killing Bjergsen and doing more than half of Core JJ's health. Danny turns around to start taking down turrets, and his last attack against Core JJ leaves a sliver of health, but Impact is able to get close enough for his Q to take down Core JJ for the quadra kill. EG start to take down the enemy base with only Bwipo left alive. Inspired did not actually have Subjugate available for this team fight, but it comes off cooldown now, so Inspired can use it on Bwipo, greatly reducing how tanky Bwipo is. Bwipo sets up his own pillar and uses it to knock out Danny with Searing Charge, but Vulcan lands another great Cosmic Binding, stunning Bwipo against the Nexus turret. Impact does a lot of damage with another powder keg, then uses Prowler's Claw to dash to Bwipo and hit him with a Trial by Fire auto attack. Danny burns Bwipo down with Bullet Time, but actually stops channeling Bullet Time before getting the kill, and Impact's Trial by Fire once again procs the execute from the Collector and gives Impact his first Pentakill in the LCS. Evil Geniuses won this critical late game teamfight in Game 5.
Hansama is putting out so much damage.
Look at Bwipo, has an angle here potentially.
Okay, Santorin and Bjergsen here on the front. Hansama popping the cleanse, Bullet Time
Here goes
flying
Bwipo.
out.
Oh, he's on
Bjergsen
Danny.
is about to die, but Danny's gonna die first. They're all piled into the river as Hansama is still alive. He'll try to kite out Inspired as EG continue to dive forward. Jojo's into the stasis. Impact wants his man, and he finds him. Hans is out of the picture. Santorin about to die now, and now Bwipo will fall too. Bjergsen retreats. Core retreats! EG gets up!
With the Elder Dragon alive, both teams group up for a fight and EG make the first move. Jojo Pyun dashes forward and lands a max range Everfrost that roots Hansama, who uses Cleanse to back away. Meanwhile, Santorin drops the pillar behind Danny, but this means TL doesn't have an easy way of stopping Danny from channeling bullet time. Danny does a lot of damage with bullet time, but it is only on the 2 tankiest members of Team Liquid. Inspired steps forward to knock up both Santorin and Bjergsen with Keeper's Verdict, but Santorin is able to step out of the bullet time before this happens. Vulcan and Jojopune dive in as well, but Vulcan does not hit Bjergsen with the quickness, which allows Bjergsen to use Zhonya's Hourglass before Vulcan would have hit Grand Entrance to knock him up. Bwipo joins the fight from an incredible flank angle that EG had no vision of, and this leaves Danny with no way to escape, so Bwipo takes him down in essentially a solo kill. Once Bjergsen goes into stasis, the rest of EG turn their attention to the bigger threat of Hansama. Bjergsen is able to defend him with Hero's Entrance, but Hansama also uses his stopwatch to stay safe. Everyone from EG is able to get away from the Hero's Entrance knockup, but it does buy some space for Hansama. However, Jojopune runs past Bwipo and Santorin to throw a chain toward Hansama, which forces Hansama to flash away, causing the chain to hit Core JJ instead. This does bring Jojopune into range of Bjergsen's taunt, which gets followed up with a bunch of damage from the rest of TL. However, the taunt barely does not last long enough, and Jojopune is able to use Zhonya's Hourglass, avoiding Bjergsen's Winds of War as well as more attacks from Bwipo and Santorin that certainly would have killed him. Impact now joins the fight, and he has his eyes set on the enemy AD carry. Impact uses Slice and Dice through the TL frontline to get close enough to flash on top of Hansama and stun him. Since Hansama has already used both Cleanse and Flash in this fight, he has no way to escape this dive, and Impact and Inspired are able to take him down. When Jojopune exits his stasis, he gets a big heal from using Kingslayer on Santorin, then he dashes away out of Santorin's attack range. When Santorin catches up, Jojopune turns and hits Santorin with all of his abilities, and a second Kingslayer gives Jojopune a massive health advantage in this 1v1. Bwipo flashes toward Jojopune to try and turn that fight, but Vulcan then dives in with Grand Entrance, hitting both TL players and killing Santorin. This leaves Bwipo in a 1v4 as Bjergsen and Core JJ realize that they need to run away, and EG wins the fight 4 kills to 1, giving them the Elder Dragon that would snowball into a victory in Game 5 and a spot at Worlds. Thank you for watching Hyperanalyzing LCS. Hit subscribe and come back next week for my analysis of the LCS Summer Split Finals.